despite trailing for most of the game, almost the entire game, and really not playing well at all, the Charlotte Hornets win this edition of the Tank Wars, and the Raptors come away with the victory in the game, 123 to 117. Let's break down the performance in tonight's post-game show. Yeah, we start off all these post-game shows by saying the win-loss stuff isn't as important as development, playing well, just seeing the process in place of making this team better. And perhaps we can't really get the full scope on these sorts of things associated with the process leading into the trade deadline. Trade deadline day, if you're watching live, it's tomorrow. If you're watching this back after the fact, it's today. So it's very tough to battle through a situation like this where the guy next to you on the bench might be on a different team at the end of the day tomorrow. You yourself might be on a different team at the end of the day tomorrow. So when it comes to like right before the trade deadline situations, it's tough to come out and perform, I suppose. But this was a game that the Raptors really got not much out of, to me. It was a poor performance. At least there was some resiliency and some heart showcased in the fourth quarter. Thankfully, they're playing a team that's bad enough where it's not too little too late. Whereas so many games this season, the Raptors played like they did for the first three quarters, they'd be blown out of the water and the game would be done. That's what happened against the New Orleans Pelicans. In the end, the Oklahoma City Thunder ran us out of the gym in the second half and eventually in the second overtime period. But the Hornets are bad enough here that the Raptors were able to manufacture the comeback when they just dialed in a little bit more. And actually almost enough to cover the pregame spread. The Raptors were favored by 7 to 7.5 points here, and they win by 6 in the end. At one point in this game, they were down by 15. Right out the gates of this game, they were down by 12. The Hornets started the game on a 15-3 run, but the Raptors just hung around enough to keep close enough that eventually the talent on the team started to come forward a little bit more, and most importantly, they actually started to play defense. They gave up 36 points in the first quarter, 24 in the second, in a low-scoring quarter altogether, and 37 points in the third quarter before a fourth quarter where they only allow 20 points. Miles Bridges cooled off from a shooting standpoint, was just like unconscious shooting throughout the game, as was Brandon Miller. But the defense dialed in a bit more. They stopped leaving the hot hands wide open, which they did for about 3.5 quarters of this game, which was infuriating. The defense was just horrible the entire game. But thankfully, in the end, they start getting some stops down. And on offense, they do enough. It was mostly inefficient from the Raptors for the game, but things cleaned up in the second half. And when the offense cleaned things up in the third quarter and carried that into the fourth quarter, and the defense engaged in the fourth quarter, it gave the Raptors the swing that they needed to come through and win this basketball game, albeit against the Charlotte Hornets. So, people will be looking at this game thinking, like, we're tanking. This isn't a good result, especially because the Hornets are lower than us in the standings. For this, the Hornets are probably so low that the Raptors won't have to consider them in that equation. Like, I really find it hard to believe the Raptors are going to be able to sink low enough to catch the Charlotte Hornets in the tank race. But, I mean, every loss, I guess, is important towards that. Me watching this game, it was tough to root against the Raptors in that sense. It always is. It always will be. But for me, things are so down. Things are so dejected right now. Morale is low. Energy is low. You felt that for the first 3.5 quarters of this game. You really felt the energy levels being low. So it's kind of nice to get a boost like this. The players at least provides a little bit of excitement here. A nice finish as well to the game. Just some sort of boost, I think, is something that this team needs right now, heading towards the trade deadline. So ultimately, I'm not upset the Raptors won this game. Whatever consequences that come later on, so be it. It's nice to win one every once in a while. So we got the win here, especially following up that New Orleans Pelicans game. But like I said, it wasn't easy for the Raptors. They put themselves down in a big hole early. I honestly couldn't believe they followed up the 40-point drubbing to the Pelicans by showing up 3.5 quarters late to this one, coming out so flat. They were so flat. The play was extremely sloppy. The hustle stats were not going in the favor of the Raptors. In the end, turnovers were about even. In the end, offensive rebounds were about even, but it certainly did not feel like that was the case for the long bit to start this game. it was not a great watch. Honestly, it was not that fun of a watch. Like, I'm leaving some of these games thinking like, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed what I saw. This was a tough one to get through. This was a tough watch, but they do enough. And box score wise, it looks pretty good here. Adjustments made. It looked like they just started giving a shit on defense, to be honest. That seemed to be what adjustment was made there, but they looked more dialed in the late stages. They stopped over doubling, which I think was an adjustment that was made, which probably should have occurred before Miles Bridges got up to 40 plus points in the game. But hey, at least you did it at some point. And like I said, your abysmal start to the game wasn't punished because you're the far superior team to the Charlotte Hornets and were able to showcase that in the end. So what were the players that contributed to it? Well, the Raptors had 7 players with 12 points or more. Scotty Barnes with 18 points in this one, 6 of 15 from the field, an inefficient game. Another game where the production slows down in the fourth, unfortunately. He entered the fourth quarter with 15 points and 5 assists. Just 3 points in the fourth quarter. Just a general lack of aggression from the player, which is a bit annoying. But it's also a little bit on Darko. It's a combination. Darko's got to get him more involved in some plays being run for him late, which wasn't really the case. It was the case when Siakam was here. For some reason, Barnes has moved up in the hierarchy and still isn't getting some plays run for him. Darko's still not drawing up plays for his top guy in late game situation for whatever reason. Jakob Poeltl comes up big on the glass tonight. Big in every category, really. 12 points, 12 rebounds for Jakob Poeltl. A lot of guys in this list we're going to go through are players that may not be here same time tomorrow, which is pretty crazy. Gary Trent started the game super, super hot. He had 4 threes in the first half. Followed up with 0 in the second half. Didn't close the game. Darko really likes to close with Dennis Schroeder, who had a decent game, but my preference right now would be Gary, but his boomer bust defense gave him 3 steals to go with it. 1 assist takes away just the strictly buckets night on offense for Gary Trent. RJ Barrett with another very nice performance for Raptors. He led the way with 23 points, had 6 rebounds, 5 assists to go with it. Defense is still a problem, but if we continue to see some positive stuff from RJ Barrett, I'll stay pretty happy, and hopefully along the way we work on the defense. Manuel quickly had a horrific start to this game shooting-wise. A third game in a row, it seemed like it was going to be a bad shooting night for Manuel quickly. Really came on strong in the second half. We'll finish with 18 points. Let the playmaking stuff slip beyond the second half, beyond the half, but at least the points were up. 6 of 13 from the field for 18 points. It's another 30 assist game. Still pretty good from the team. Thaddeus Young in his cameo, solid, 8 rebounds. Like, he just continues to be solid as minutes. Bruce Brown, with likely his last game for the Raptors, put on a decent night with 12 points. Schroeder bounces back well to his absolute dud against the Pelicans with 16 points, 5 assists, and a rebound. Grady Dick, I felt like deserved more play time, was 2 of 2 from 3 for 6 points, only got 15 minutes. I mean, what are we saving this guy for? What are we holding him back from? Give this guy some minutes. On the on the Hornets side of things, Miller was crazy to start the game. Bridges was out of this world to start the game. And the Raptors, truthfully, let them go for a little bit like that. Bridges had 5 offensive rebounds, which is pretty sensational stuff from the Raptors to allow that to happen. And that helped them get to 45 points. Also 6 of 11 shooting. Took the Raptors 3.5 quarters to realize, hey, don't leave him open. But when they did, they got the stops they needed. Brandon Miller has been cooking recently. And he was another one. The Raptors went, hey, maybe we should start to defend this guy. And when they did, they started to see some positive results. And he finishes with 20 points. On the team stats perspective, the Raptors were shooting the ball well from 3 the entire game. But it was the field goal percentage that was lower to start. They started getting better looks. They started being a bit more aggressive down low. Quickly started being smarter with his touches on the inside. Got RJ Barrett more involved. A little bit more Scotty Barnes as the game wore on. And the Hornets' efficiency, it just slowly dropped as the game went on. They ended up shooting 41% from the field. They started the game well above, I think they're at halftime above 50% shooting from 3. That came down. When that came down, the Raptors, just in general, the better team, I mean, they started to showcase that. But it's a game that the Raptors probably didn't deserve to win. They lose the possession battle by 9 extra shots for the Charlotte Hornets. Raptors make up a little bit with the 3-point percentage. Raptors make up a little bit with the free throw percentage. That's where the Hornets kind of get outdone there. But it was not a fun one. Honestly, it was not really a fun one for Raptors fans to watch, I don't think, but it's a win. And it's a win right before the trade deadline. I am, as I said, very, very much looking forward for the dust to settle on the trade deadline. Just understanding what this team is again. I think the next 2 games are going to be tough. You got the Rockets on Friday, right after the trade deadline. If you acquire a bunch of guys, they won't be available. The Cavs game Saturday, maybe they're available. The Cavs are have been great recently. That's gonna be a bad one, I think. Then Monday, that's when I think the clouds will start to part a little bit. You have a big opportunity to get a win at home against the San Antonio Spurs. So road trip is over. 6-game road trip is over. 5-game homestead on the way. Trade deadline on the way. Not a great performance, but a win. Let's see what happened with that trade deadline. Tons of content coming the way here, so make sure you're subscribed. Tons of content, as I said. And please make sure as well that you drop a like on this one if you enjoyed, because we do something like this for every Raptors game. We'll see you again next time for that Houston game on Friday.